What's up and welcome to the DualSense podcast for episode 139. I am one of your co-hosts, Jason. I'm not joined today by your other co-host, Travis, because he has gone rogue and went on an impromptu vacation off somewhere far away, enjoying himself, I'm sure. And so it's just going to be a solo operation today with yours truly. It's a shame because it's a big episode today. It's a pretty newsworthy week that we've had, but I'll do my best without Travis to keep things going, although it won't be the same without him here. But he has a tendency to do this shit, doesn't he? We need to reprimand him for that, probably. Yeah, so before we jump into things here, I wanted to report that I got my second PSVR 2 headset in the mail today. I talked last week, if you'll remember, about how I went ahead and made the decision to send my first one back. I felt like I was having some issues with it that were not just the typical, oh, it's blurry, or oh, this, or oh, that. I was having some issues with focus, but I also was having issues with the controllers not charging, and my charging dock also did not like my right controller, which was odd, so I sent it back as well. And of course, there's the reports and stuff now. It's not, I won't use the word frequent, but it's not nothing, or not a non-zero chance, I guess I should say, of controller charging docks melting controllers. So figured I would go ahead and send that back. The odd thing about that is that they would not, meaning Sony would not let me send it back for a replacement. They would only give me a refund from PlayStation Direct, and the PlayStation Direct website shows the Sense controller charging stations is out of stock. And I find that really hard to believe that they're sold out of those, considering it just launched, and surely they have enough, right? So I'm wondering if maybe they've discovered a problem and they're kind of quietly dealing with it internally and just showing that as out of stock. So anyway, I'll be back on the PSVR 2 grind very soon. And again, no Travis today. But before we get into the news here, I wanted to remind you all that we are a PlayStation podcast where Travis and I normally get together and discuss all of the week's news, rumors, new game releases, and much more. We do it all in under 90 minutes, and we post new episodes every Monday on your podcast services, as well as the YouTube, where we also share gameplay videos and clips as well. I think most recently I shared some Moss gameplay from PSVR 2, so that's on there if you're interested in seeing what that looks like on the new headset. I'll have some more gameplay coming pretty immediately, the same day that this podcast comes out, of a secret game as of now. That'll be available on Monday, but you can also get the podcast there every Monday as well. We would also love to hear from you on social media. Please find us on Twitter at the DualSense Pod, but you can also catch us on Instagram, where we share virtual photography from in-game photo modes, as well as Facebook, and our blog is thedualsensepodcast.wordpress.com. You can get the episodes there, show notes, our bios and pictures, all that good stuff. So please hit us up, like many of you have been doing lately. Very much appreciate that. Love to hear from you all and chat some PlayStation. So without any further ado here, let me jump into a busy week of news. Starting with number one. As you might expect, it appears that a PlayStation 5 Pro is indeed on the way, likely in late 2024, according to well-connected insider Tom Henderson. Beyond the PlayStation 5, with the detachable disc drive coming later this year, Sony is hitting that mid-generation refresh button once more, with one source telling Henderson, quote, "This is just the beginning of new hardware coming to PlayStation users this generation," end quote. As for what the PS5 Pro will be capable of, details are scant, but it seems it will focus on improvements for ray tracing implementation, with PlayStation architect Mark Cerny having filed a patent for technology that will quote-unquote accelerate ray tracing performance in video games. Henderson also understands from sources that the PlayStation 6 is unlikely to launch until at least 2028, which would give the PS5 a full 8-year life cycle, with a Pro model giving it a boost at year 4. While we will most likely be waiting until 2024 to hear about the Pro, we probably don't have to wait much longer to hear about the detachable disc drive PS5, as it could pop up at the rumored, quote-unquote, before E3 PlayStation showcase that has been rumored. So to me, it's always been inevitable that we would get a PS5 Pro at some point. I think that that's just the trajectory that PlayStation is setting themselves on now. Ever since the PS4 generation, we got PS4 Pro. It was actually in 2016, so that would have been year 3, I guess, or right around almost year 4 for PS4 Pro, because it came out in 2016, if I remember correctly. So this sounds like we're going to get the 5 Pro directly around year 4 of the PS5 generation, cutting the generation in half, giving us a little stopgap until we get to PlayStation 6. And honestly, I'm not upset about it if it does some key things for me. The biggest thing for me is if it will allow me to not have to choose between native 4K and 60 frames per second, which my understanding is that that's asking a lot, even from like high-end PCs, but these things are becoming high-end PCs, right? So if it can fix that problem for me where I don't have to choose one or the other, it's well worth the money in my opinion. I did this with the PS4 Pro is, I bought the PS4 Pro, sold the old original on eBay, got some of my money back. It's not a huge deal. Like, am I having to spend, a few more $100 on another box? Yeah, I understand that turns a lot of people off. I understand that for a lot of people, this feels like maybe poaching sort of thing. But I'm also one of those people who want the very best experience when I'm playing games. With the exception of my TV, I have a good TV, but I don't have like, the OLED Samsungs that everyone seems to gravitate towards, or is it LG? I don't remember. Like, it's Samsung, but anyway, PS5 Pro really intrigues me, especially if it can solve that one really big problem for me. Ray tracing, I'm not really, I guess, not convinced isn't the word, but I don't know that ray tracing is all that big of a deal. Let me put it this way. It's not as big of a deal to me as 4K 60 would be, right? Certainly it's a nice feature, but 4K 60 as the standard is much more important to me personally. So if it can solve that, I'm all for it. The detachable disk drive will be interesting to see how that does later this year. If there even really is a big market for that, that'll be pretty interesting to see. But the crazy thing about all this is that even though it feels like we just got PS5, when you think about it, we're really not all that far off from PlayStation 6. It'll be here before you know it. Number 2, HBO's first season run of The Last of Us concluded last Sunday night and was a mostly faithful adaptation of the ending from the first game. It also amassed 8.2 million viewers, marking a 74% increase in viewership from premiere to finale. In fact, it surpassed Game of Thrones spinoff House of the Dragon in total season viewership. As far as plans for the future, in an interview with GQ, show co-creators Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin confirmed that the second game will be more than one season of television, seemingly confirming that we will get at least 3 seasons of the show. Showrunner Mazin said that, similar to the first season, future seasons will deviate from the game in both small and big ways. He said, quote, "I think we know what we're doing on this one. I'm not saying that in a snarky way. I'm saying that in a hopeful way. There are going to be things that are going to be different, and there are things that are going to be identical." End quote. It is widely assumed that the second game will take up 2 seasons of television, with a likely third and final game translating to a fourth or possibly even fifth and final season of the TV show. However, Druckmann told Kinda Funny Games in an interview this week that Naughty Dog is already working on their next project, and it doesn't sound like it's The Last of Us Part 3. In that same interview, Druckmann also revealed that there was once a prequel game that told the story of Ellie's mother in development at a studio that was not Naughty Dog, which never came to fruition, obviously. Okay, so not a huge surprise considering how big The Last of Us Part 2 is from a game standpoint. It's like a 30-plus hour story to play through. That's a lot of television to try to cram into, 9, 10, 11 episodes. So, and it also, if you play the game without spoiling it, you know that there's somewhat like 2 story arcs, I guess you could say, in that game. So that makes sense from that perspective as well. Going to be really interesting to see how they adapt it, though, for television, because there are some really video game things that I think that they have to deal with that won't translate to television without spoiling the game. There's multiple characters that you play as that get focused on at various points, and that'll be interesting to see how they handle that for television. Some characters, like Season 1 or like the first game, get killed off, if you know what I mean. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. So, all in all, a huge success, though, for the first season. Incredible. 74% increase from start to finish, and unheard of, really, most of the time in premiere or prestige TV, if you will. As far as the games, a theory that I shared with some friends earlier this week, in my opinion, is that we get The Last of Us multiplayer game this year. I'm going to stick with that November kind of holiday window. I think that in 2026, we get Naughty Dog's next major project, which I think is a rumored fantasy game, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later on. And I think that at the start of the PlayStation 6 generation, possibly 2028, we might get The Last of Us Part 3, because I maintain that Naughty Dog is one of these PlayStation studios that are working on at least 2 and potentially 3 projects. And you also have to understand that PlayStation's infrastructure has changed lately too in the last, year or two, right? Because now we have support teams like Valkyrie built into PlayStation Studios. You have Malaysia, who works on art assets. So you have what I'm going to say is this pipeline developing. You have Bungie helping with live service implementation. So you have this pipeline that they're developing that I think are going to speed up the production of some of these games for some of the marquee studios, in my opinion. I could be totally off base, but I just don't think that we're going to have to go as long as we have been going between mainline releases from studios, 4, 5, 6 years. I just don't know if that's going to stay that way. I think we're talking more like 3-ish years between mainline games from a studio in the future. Just my opinion. We'll see. Number 3, another potential hint that Naughty Dog is working on a fantasy game for its next project might have accidentally slipped this week. The studio's audio director, TLOU, hope I'm saying that right, stated in an interview for a new no-clip gaming documentary, quote, "Realism and sound is actually very difficult to recreate faithfully, because when you do it incorrectly, it's immediately noticeable. When you're working on a big game that involves magic, or, sort of hyper-realism in a really substantial way, it's easy to hide behind big sound," end quote. This is in addition to a Naughty Dog artist uploading fantasy concept art to his ArtStation profile back in 2021, as well as fantasy art spotted in The Last of Us Part 1 that fans believe could be an Easter egg for their next game. Okay, so I mentioned this a moment ago. This fantasy game from Naughty Dog is picking up a little bit more speed. It is, you have to admit, it is very interesting that the studio's audio director used the word magic or referred to magic, right? I mean, he could have said explosions, or gunfights or anything like that. More general or more in the taste of the games that they've been making, right? In terms of Uncharted or The Last of Us. He didn't say that. He said magic. I just find that very strange. I find that very telling, in my opinion. It's almost like the same thing that slipped up that really no one noticed, and not even us, other than the Sacred Symbols, Colin Moriarty. He noticed in an interview a few weeks back now that I don't remember if it was Neil Druckmann or someone else from the studio was talking about the game and said specifically that you would be teaming up with a friend, singular. I also pointed out on our Twitter this week that the only piece of concept art with people in it that we've seen so far includes 2 people. So that seems to me like that game, meaning Factions, is a PvPvE 2-player squad co-op game, right? I feel like those are some telling signs. Otherwise, why would you not say friends? And if you did say friend, why would you not correct that for the printed interview? You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's nothing. Could be reading with too much into it, but it just seems notable considering the concept art that we have So backing back up and coming full circle to the fantasy game, why would this guy, Neil, the other Neil, the audio director Neil, say magic? Because perhaps that's what he's been working on a daily basis, is magic. Maybe he let it slip. We're all humans, right? It's possible. Anyway, just curious. Number 4, and what would certainly be an interesting plot twist to the entire Xbox, Activision, PlayStation story, it appears there could be a chance that The Elder Scrolls 6 makes its way to PlayStation 5 when it releases, despite Microsoft now owning parent company ZeniMax outright. Axios reporter Stephen Totilo has pointed out that Microsoft stated recently that 2 upcoming ZeniMax games are set to release exclusively on Xbox and PC, which is not in line with their previous remarks. Back in December of last year, Microsoft said that, quote, 3 future titles, end quote, from ZeniMax would release only on Xbox and PC. The only game to release from the company between the 2 conflicting statements has been Hi-Fi Rush, suggesting that it was one of the 3 exclusive titles. Okay, so what does this all mean? Well, the only other ZeniMax titles that we know of at this point are Redfall, Starfield, and The Elder Scrolls 6, of which we know that Redfall and Starfield have been confirmed to be Xbox exclusive, which leaves us PlayStation brethren to wonder. For what it's worth, Totilo sought clarification from Microsoft on the matter, but was denied a comment. Just curious. It's also worth noting that Sony previously told British regulators that they do believe that The Elder Scrolls 6 will in fact be exclusive to Xbox. So we can't discount that either, but another one of these just curious happenings of, I guess, somewhat semantics, but what people says matters. And it's a number that went from 3 to 2, right? And if you just do the calculus there, it definitely seems like it's a possibility, or maybe it's just not been a decision that's made yet. Maybe it hasn't been communicated effectively. That's, of course, obviously possibilities too, but it's just when these big companies say these things, you have to keep in mind they have a lot going on, right? And people, again, make mistakes. So at the very least, it's curious. How did it go from 3 to 2? Was Hi-Fi Rush considered that? They certainly knew that game was in development, and it did not come to PlayStation. Or was that not at the time considered in that first comment? It's just hard to know. But again, it's something else that's worth noting at the very least for its curiosity. Number 5, Sony revealed the entirety of the March additions to the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers this week. Both tiers are getting the following: Chia, Uncharted and Legacy of Thieves Collection, Ghostwire Tokyo, which is also getting a big free content update on April the 12th, Immortals Phoenix Rising, Rainbow Six Extraction, Life is Strange True Colors, Life is Strange 2, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Street Fighter V Champion Edition, Untitled Goose Game, Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, Rage 2, Neo The World Ends With You, Haven, and then over on the premium tier, they're getting PlayStation Classics, Ridge Racer Type 4 from PlayStation 1, Ape Academy 2 from PlayStation Portable, and Siphon Filter Dark Mirror from PlayStation Portable as well. So overall, a really strong month. Another really good month. Chia, a day one launch onto the service. It's an indie game from new developer Awaseb, but we're also getting bangers like Uncharted, the Legacy of Thieves Collection, which is the PS5 version of that, Ghostwire Tokyo, which is a really cool game, the last Bethesda exclusive on PlayStation, Immortals Phoenix Rising, which is like a Zelda Breath of the Wild knockoff from Ubisoft, Rainbow Six Extraction, which I think is underrated, and it's especially fun if you have friends that can co-op it with you. Not so much fun with randoms. Let's see here. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which just got a PlayStation 5 upgrade, or is going to at some point here soon. Street Fighter V, Untitled Goose Game has got reviewed really well, supposed to be very good. So a lot of bangers here. Then Siphon Filter Dark Mirror, a lot of people regard that as the best Siphon Filter game, I believe. It's coming to the service, so a really strong month here, and PlayStation's doing really well with the extra tier, in my opinion, and they're getting better with the premium tier as well. So I did re-download Ghostwire Tokyo, and I might go ahead and download Uncharted: The Legacy of Thieves Collection as well, because I've been wanting to play that on PS5. Chia looks awesome too, so definitely don't sleep on that one. And yeah, nice little month. Number 6, we also have a bunch of news nuggets as well, and normally Travis jumps in here and chimes in with his thoughts, but none of that this week. You just got to listen to me, so I'll do my best here to give you some thoughts as well. First nugget, time for your weekly Activision deal drama roundup. The British CMA published the opinions of 6 game development studios who all say the deal should be approved. One even offered a doomsday alternative to Microsoft now acquiring them, saying, quote, "If Microsoft is prevented from acquiring Activision, would the UK consumers be better served if they were acquired by Tencent instead?" End quote. Tencent does already hold a minority stake in Activision. Another studio claimed that their sales on PlayStation consoles have gotten worse with each subsequent game release, blaming Sony's focus on big games from big publishers. Elsewhere, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission have filed a complaint against Microsoft for not providing additional documents that they have requested 24 times now. The FTC also wants to see the vaunted 10-year deal Microsoft has struck with Nintendo in its entirety, as well as more details on its exclusivity plans for ZeniMax, meaning Bethesda properties. Later in the week, European regulators decided to delay their final decision on the deal to May 22nd to give Microsoft more time to propose additional remedies. Okay, so quickly here, I know we're getting sort of exhausted with talking about this pretty much every week now at this point. I do want to touch on it a little bit. First of all, it is a fair point to say, well, we don't want Tencent, right? Why not Microsoft? I think that's a fair point, because if the deal falls apart and Activision decides that they want to stay for sale, or, it's such a good deal that they have to take it to their shareholders, then certainly I would much rather personally have Microsoft be the caretakers and the purveyors of Activision's properties as opposed to Tencent. No doubt. 100%. So I'm with them on that. We're in solidarity there, whoever this random developer is. And of course, we've talked about that on the show a little bit before as well. As far as the other comment about a developer's games getting worse and worse, performance-wise, sales-wise on PlayStation consoles, that's not really a measurable or provable. I mean, it's provable. But what I'm saying is, I guess, how do we know that's not your fault as opposed to PlayStation's fault? How do we know that you're not just making games that don't resonate with people as well? And if you're releasing your game on Game Pass at the same time, but your sales are declining on PlayStation, that's not really indicative of anything either, because people are more inclined to try your games on Game Pass. There's no doubt about that. So I don't know about that one. Not buying that totally. The fact that the European regulators have given Microsoft more time to make remedies makes me feel like things were not going well, or were at least not going to go well for Microsoft there in that location. And they probably were like, okay, hang on a second here. Let us figure this out. Just calm down. Let's talk this through. Let's see what else we can do here to make this go over, right? That's what that seems like to me. So also, I think it's a fair play to ask on the US side, well, you keep hyping up these 10-year deals, so show it to us. Let's see what it is, and let's see if it's, valid. Let's see if it's anything to worry about, or let's see if this, solves the problem for us, right? I think that's valid. It's a valid question. And I also think it's a valid question to ask about its exclusivity plans for Bethesda when there is some conflicting information there, in my opinion, in terms of, they said that they had no intentions of making games that were on PlayStation consoles already exclusive. But then here we sit with the Elder Scrolls potentially, and, so I think that's a fair question to ask as well. The other thing I want to point out about this is while we are all getting exhausted with this, and we do want it to be over, when I say all, I mean the royal us, right? The royal we. I think that there are some other corners of this that have some nuance and have some fair points in terms of, yeah, Microsoft is offering Call of Duty to PlayStation for 10 years. They're offering it day one for PlayStation Plus, right? But we don't know what strings are attached to that necessarily. Also, I think it's fair to say that PlayStation doesn't operate their ecosystem on something like Game Pass. It's not the same, right? PlayStation Plus and Game Pass are not the same. So giving them Call of Duty on PlayStation Plus, there has to be a trade-off there, right? In other words, we know PlayStation doesn't want to do that because that's not profitable for them. I think it's worth not just saying, oh, well, Microsoft offered it to them and Microsoft said they could put it on PlayStation Plus. What's the problem? Well, there's more to it than that. There's way more to it than that because these two companies don't operate the same. They don't have the same business philosophies. So there's a lot more to it than that. It's not just as simple as, apples to apples, tit for tat. So just wanted to point that out as well. Next nugget, Guerrilla Games finally shared some details regarding the upcoming Horizon Burning Shores expansion this week, In an interview on the PlayStation blog, game director Mathis de Jong says that since Burning Shores is going PS5 only, we can expect even more detail in its version of Los Angeles. He added that there is one major battle scene that requires a lot of processing power and memory from the PS5. Very excited about this. Can't wait. In addition to the March PS Plus games, Sony also revealed April's first PS Plus title this week. User-created dungeon-crawling first-person shooter Meet Your Maker from the creators of Dead by Daylight was announced to be launching day one on PS Plus Essential on April the 4th. Cinematic platformer Lunark is coming to PS4 and PS5 on March 30th. Narrative-driven sci-fi RPG Citizen Sleeper is coming to PS4 and PS5 on March 31st, and it will include all of the game's DLC. That one's supposed to be pretty good. Website Video Games Chronicle reported that Hitman developer IO Interactive stated this week that a major new Hitman game is, quote-unquote, a little bit on hiatus as they work on their James Bond game and later their online fantasy RPG. The developer has also opened a new office in Istanbul, Turkey, they announced this week. Dead Island 2 developer Dambuster says that the game being perceived as in development hell helped its warm reception from critical previews this week. They said, quote, I think people were expecting it to be terrible and so were pleasantly surprised when it wasn't, end quote. The studio also revealed that the game will take around 20 hours to complete, which sounds perfect, and their previews have been very positive indeed this week. Also, the developer of Souls-like game Bleak, Faith, apparently bought and used stolen assets from the Epic Game Store, they claim anyway. They have since said that they are working to replace the animation assets, which they claim they thought were bought from a legitimate source. People have been accusing them of stealing assets from Elden Ring, actually. Stalker 2 developer GSC Game World, a Ukrainian studio, has claimed that they've been hacked by Russians, which are responsible for leaks about the game online. Frontier Development's turn-based first-person shooter Lemnis Gate is shutting down after less than 2 years on the market, with the game being pulled from sale on April 11th and online services ending in July. Publisher EA has submitted an unannounced game to the Xbox Store codenamed Lorem Ipsum 70, that damned Lorem Ipsum, which was filed under the quote-unquote racing and flying category. It's understood that this title is not F1 23, however, as that game has been confirmed to have a different store listing by data miners. Also, Square Enix shared the first teaser trailer for their very first NFT game this week, which is a massive fart noise. It's called Symbiogenesis and will allegedly feature over 10,000 unique characters. Okay. Konami has filed a new trademark for Project Zircon, which is a reference to their popular Castlevania IP, which has fans hoping that rumors of a new game are true. New Tekken 8 gameplay trailers dropped this week, showcasing fighters Martial Law and King if you're interested. FIFA president Gianni Infantino stated this week that there will be news about their new soccer game and EA Sports competitor very soon. He added that, quote, the new FIFA game, the FIFA 25, 26, 27, and so on, will always be the best e-game for any girl or boy, end quote. That's so just trivial. Like, he acts like the only people that play video games are girls or boys, like children. This is the way I read that. That also is such a corny take. He has no idea what he's doing or talking about. Also, Sega developer Creative Assembly has opened a third office based in Newcastle, United Kingdom. They're working alongside their Sussex office on an unannounced project. The new studio is led by Giselle Stewart, the former general manager of Reflections, the developer who created the Destruction Derby and Driver IPs. This could be epic. Epic. Sony executive and beloved PlayStation icon Shuhei Yoshida has been selected for the prestigious BAFTA Fellowship Award, the highest accolade that is bestowed by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. He will receive the award on March 30th and joins other notable honorees such as Charlie Chaplin, David Attenborough, Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, and Martin Scorsese. You might have heard of them. Shu is currently the head of PlayStation Indies, but previously served as the head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios. He has been with Sony since 1993 when he joined the PlayStation project 1 year before the release of the original console. Congratulations to Shu. Very lovely man. Former Criterion Games, the people behind Need for Speed, the leads from that studio have established a new studio in the UK called Fuse Games. It is led by former EA Vice President and Criterion GM Matt Webster. All of the members of the Need for Speed Unbound development team that departed Criterion right after the release of Unbound have joined up at Fuse Games, as we speculated last year. So if you'll remember, right when this happened, when these handful of people left Criterion after Unbound released, Travis and I talked about it on the show, and we had said that either something had gone wrong and they had fired all these people, or they were leaving to start their own studio, which is what happened. Also, casting for the new Return to Silent Hill movie is underway, with Jeremy Irvin and Hannah Emily Anderson set to play leading roles. The movie will be based off the Silent Hill 2 game and is led by the original Silent Hill film director Christoph Gans. A newly published patent from PlayStation shows that they are developing ways to use NFTs and blockchain technology in games, including the ability for players to buy and sell NFTs across different games and systems, which is also massive fart noise. Kart racer Disney Speedstorm will hit paid early access on PlayStation on April the 18th. It will be releasing as a free-to-play title later this year if you don't feel like spending money. After getting internally delayed recently, although it has still not been announced publicly, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League most likely will not drop any of its live service elements, according to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. Website Games Industry reported that Grammy-winning songwriter Blood Pop has formed a new game studio called Gen Pop. It includes talent who have worked on Halo, Cyberpunk, and Red Dead, and they've also raised $6.5 million in seed funding. Former Blizzard leadership, including Jen O'Neill and J. Allen Brack, have founded a new studio called Magic Soup Games. Elsewhere, another band of former Blizzard employees founded Gas Giant Games. The studio includes alumni of both Warcraft and Diablo, and they are currently working on a new action RPG for PC and consoles. That seems appropriate. Also, everybody's just starting a new studio, huh? Developer Splash Damage announced their new game, codenamed Project Astrid, and also revealed that they are collaborating with streamers Sacriel and Shroud on the AAA open-world survival game, which is currently in pre-production. Publisher Kepler Interactive announced that it hit $50 million in revenue last year and also revealed a new batch of partnerships, which include Singapore-based studio The Gentle Bros, known for the Cat Quest series, French studio Sandfall Interactive, who are working on their first game, and studio-sized dating action RPG Eternites, which is a PlayStation exclusive, or at least a timed PlayStation exclusive, coming later this year. The publisher has also established a new publishing fund, as well as giving subsidiary Kowloon Knights a new games funding division with full control of the operation. The most recent Kepler/Kowloon production is none other than Chia. Atari has acquired a 1980 shooter Berserk and its sequel Frenzy. They will explore pre-publishing both titles as well as new titles based on the IP. Website Push Square reported that PlayStation VR 2 game What the Bat has finally had standing mode patched in, eliminating the troublesome requirement to play in room scale mode. It's very difficult to play in room scale mode. I don't know, I would say very few people have that much room to play VR. Unless you're playing the main room in your house, the big living room. There's no way people have that much room. Also, Dying Light developer Techland announced that they are developing an open-world fantasy game for their next project, with The Witcher 3 narrative lead Carolina Straccia heading up the story. Theme Hospital clone Galactic Care was announced for PS5, and it's coming later this year, and it looks wonderful. Infernax is getting its Do or Die update. It's a DEUX, or Die update on April 5th, which adds co-op to the game on PS4 and PS5. Need for Speed Unbound Volume 2 is dropping as a free update on March 21st. It will add new events, rewards, and cosmetics. Online multiplayer will also get police added in to annoy you. The update will also bring a quote-unquote Keys to the Map DLC for $5, which will reveal all collectible locations in the game. It is EA after all. Developer Bloober Team has released a new gameplay walkthrough for the Unreal Engine 5 remake of their Layers of Fear series, if you're interested. Website PlayStation Lifestyle reported that Elon Musk has taken an interest in recently released first-person shooter Atomic Heart, tweeting that he wants to work with developer Munfish to put quote-unquote Tesla bots into one of the game's DLCs. Unbelievable. A new exclusive label has started popping up on PlayStation Plus Extra catalog titles on the PlayStation Store, although no one is sure what it means at this point, really. Outer Wilds is listed as one, for example, and it most certainly is not exclusive to PlayStation. The general consensus so far is that it is exclusive to the PlayStation Plus service, as opposed to also being included on Xbox Game Pass. So, not sure what that's about. Just another marketing ploy. Also, a new job posting at developer Naughty Dog indicates that perhaps the upcoming The Last of Us multiplayer game will come to PS4 as well. The listing is for an associate multiplayer QA tester / development support, and it says Naughty Dog is looking for someone with, quote, working knowledge of PS4 and PS5 systems, end quote. Of course, that doesn't mean that the game has to come to PS4, but certainly seems like it wouldn't be in there for nothing. And if that's true, that's also a fart noise for me. Like, can we just leave the PS4 behind? Like, please. It's time. Also, though, when you think about it, the fact that this game has been in development before even The Last of Us Part 2 came out in 2020, it most likely started as a PS4 game. And so it would not shock me. Next nugget. The PS5 got a small firmware update this week to patch issues with Discord integration. Sony has now told British regulators that it doesn't trust Microsoft to stick to its word after how it handled the Bethesda acquisition, when at the time Xbox said they would not keep Bethesda titles off of other platforms. Getting the Resident Evil 4 Platinum trophy will require you to play it at least 3 times, apparently. And insider Dusk Golem claimed this week that the game will have the Separate Ways DLC campaign included. Don't know if that actually ended up being true or not. PlayStation Studio Nix's software could be bringing Insomniac's Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart to PC next, if a new job listing is any indication. The position required experience using the Coherent middleware, which is used by Insomniac on Ratchet & Clank. Like a telltale sign there. Forspoken had a development budget of over $100 million, according to the LinkedIn page of lead writer Allison Reimer, which would explain why Square Enix views it as such a disappointment. A Left 4 Dead 3 reference has been found in an apparent leak of Counter-Strike Go. Source 2 update data leaks. Digital Bros Digital Entertainment announced that Assetto Corsa 2 will release in spring of 2024. Website PlayStation Universe reported that the following games received update patches this week: Streets of Rage 4, The Witcher 3, Battlefield 2042, WWE 2K23, Multiversus, Modern Warfare 2, The Crew 2, Dead by Daylight, Conan Exiles, For Honor, and Wolong Fallen Dynasty. So if you've been waiting for some updates or fixes, you might want to check those out. Also, insider Tom Henderson reported that Assassin's Creed Red will feature both a samurai and a shinobi playable character. The samurai will be female, while the shinobi is understood to be an African refugee who adopts the ways of the Creed. Developer Deck 13 has revealed the first gameplay trailer for their upcoming co-op action RPG Atlas Fallen, if you're interested. And some gameplay came out, raw gameplay from influencers, streamers. Looks pretty good, actually. Ubisoft has released a 60 frames per second update for Far Cry 5 on PS5 this week, and it's also getting a free play week from March 23rd through March 27th, although it's available right now on your PlayStation Plus Extra game catalog if you're interested. Mafia 4 is still in pre-production according to a new job posting that says the project is, quote, currently in pre-production using Unreal Engine 5, end quote. Hogwarts Legacy developer Avalanche revealed that the game has been played for 406 million hours with over 2 billion Dark Wizards vanquished. Incredible. Wrestling game AEW Fight Forever is up against another roadblock as Game Changer Wrestling has now opposed the company's trademark of Fight Forever. So they used it for one of their events, apparently. Website Gematsu reported that free-to-play puzzle RPG Puzzle Quest 3 will come to PS4 and PS5 on April 18th. System Shock Remake has been delayed on PC by 2 months, which means it has likewise been delayed on PS4 and PS5. First-person survival horror game Shame Legacy will launch on May 30th for PS4 and PS5. A demo for detective mystery adventure game Process of Elimination is available now on PS4. Publisher Mike Royds has signed a publishing agreement with the Japanese animation studio TMS Entertainment to produce a video game based on the manga and anime series Space Adventure Cobra. The game is currently in production for consoles and PC. Guilty Gear Strive's next DLC character is Bedman? ? That's not a typo. And he will launch on April 6th. Developer Arc System Works also laid out the next year of content coming to DNF Duel, if you're interested in that game. Essentially, new characters are planned for each quarter over the next year. Psychological horror game Stray Souls was announced for PS4 and PS5, and it's due out this fall. Roguelite action game Slime 3K Rise Against a Despot was announced to be coming to PS4 and PS5 later this year. Steampunk open world top-down action adventure game Black Skylands will launch this summer on PS4 and PS5, and it looks very cool. Bullet Hell action RPG TLOU New World is coming west later this year on PS5 and PS4. Tabletop-inspired multiplayer adventure game Balladins was announced for consoles with a vague 2024 release window. Retro-style gothic fantasy action RPG Hunt the Night will come to PS4 and PS5 later this year. Asymmetrical multiplayer horror game The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from our Kentucky friends at Gun Interactive will launch for PS4 and PS5 on August 18th with a technical test planned for May 25th. Remakes of the adventure games Twinson's Little Big Adventure 1 and 2 were announced for consoles and are coming in 2024. They're being redone in Unreal Engine 5. Hockey action game Goons, Legends and Mayhem was announced for PS4 and PS5. It's coming later this year and is set in the fictional town of Zambonia. It looks pretty fun. It's like a multiplayer party game, but it also has a single-player story. Visual novel Welcome Kokuri-san will come to PS4 sometime later this year. Side-scrolling beat-em-up game Toxic Crusaders, based off the 1990 TV show, was announced to be coming to PS4 and PS5 in late 2023. New Zealand studio Space Rock Games announced third-person co-op only action-adventure game Criminals Within for consoles, although no release date was given. Developer Team Meat announced Match 4 puzzle game Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine for PS4 and PS5, and it's coming later this year, and that's a spin-off of the Super Meat Boy series. 2D strategy game Kingdom 80s, A Summer of Greed was announced for PS5. It's a spin-off of the popular Kingdom series of games from publisher Raw Fury, but no release date was announced. Looks pretty neat. Slice of life simulation game Closer the Distance. I think that's what that is the way that reads. It was announced for consoles, but no release date was given. Froggen Encore, a sequel to the 2022 platformer, was announced to be coming to PS4 and PS5 this summer. Publisher Devolver Digital has released adventure game McPixel 3 on PS4 and PS5. Coming-of-age adventure game Surf Club was announced for PS4 and PS5, but no release date. And finally, Gematsu reported that turn-based strategy RPG Lost Eidolons was announced for release on PS5 later this year. And that is all for the news this week, and even without Travis, it took me 45 minutes to get through that. So let's move on now to this week's new games. On March 14th, we got Happy Basude on PS4, The Legends of Heroes Trails to Azure on PS4, The Wreck on PS5 and PS4, Vernal Edge on PS5 and 4. March 15th, we got Blade of Darkness on the 5 and 4, Kung Fury Street Rage Ultimate Edition on the 4, Tricky Thief on the 5 and 4, Wilson, Lords of Mayhem on the 5 and 4. On March 16th, we got Alice Gear Aegis CS Concerto of Simulatrix on PS5. Anno 1800 Console Edition on the PS5, which I'll be reviewing for Gaming Nexus. You can look for that in the next few weeks, hopefully. Also, Arcade Archives Thunder Scepter 2 on PS4. Arise, A Simple Story on the 4. Backbeat on the 5 and the 4. Chinzo Club on the PS5. I think I had my eye on that one. I think I do. I need to look that up. Gorn for PSVR 2, which actually did not release. It's quite weird. We don't really know what's going on with that. It was supposed to release the PSVR 2 version of that on the 16th, and it never did. So stay tuned for that one. My Little Prince, a Jigsaw Puzzle Tale for PS4. Post Void for PS5 and 4. The Dark Pictures Switchback for PSVR 2. And then on the 17th, we got Anti-Gravity Racing for PS4. Demon Hunter Chronicles from Beyond on the 5 and the 4. Faircrofts and Antiques, The Mountaineer's Legacy on the 5. First Time in Paris on the 5. Montgomery Fox in the Case of the Diamond Necklace on the 5. Montgomery Fox in the Case of the Missing Ballerinas on the 5. Peppa Pig World Adventures on the 5 and the 4. The Guys on the PS5 and 4. And finally, WWE 2K23 on PS5 and PS4. Pretty decent week. You know, WWE 2K23 is a big one. It's getting pretty good reviews. Let's see what else here. Anno 1800, that's a big one for me personally because I, love city builders and I'm excited to get into that. The Dark Picture Switchback was a big one on PSVR 2. It's getting average reviews, I would say. And some of this other stuff I don't understand. Although I think Chinzo Club, that name stands out to me, so I need to look that up. I remember that one looking pretty cool, I think. I feel like that's like a beat-em-up game, maybe? Anyway, that's all for the new games this week. And I'll start to wrap the show up here like we normally do by discussing what we've been playing. And it's just me this week, so I've been playing... We played a little bit of Battlefield 2042, I'm pretty sure, last weekend. I need to play some more because we got some new weekly challenges. I also tried the Trackmania closed beta on PS5. It's in beta right now for a couple of weeks. And I don't remember if I can talk about that or not. But anyway, I played it. Streets of Rage 4, played that after it got a big update this week with like over 300 fixes and some stuff like that. So I downloaded that. It was on sale for 50% off. And I always enjoyed the Streets of Rage games growing up. So I downloaded that and played that with a friend. Very short game. Seems like it's got some decent replayability because you've got a bunch of different characters that you can play through. Hoping to play some more of that as well with my friend Jacob, but we'll see. And then I played in the Exoprimal beta, which is that dinosaur third-person co-op shooter from Capcom. And let me tell you guys, that game is a blast. Definitely don't sleep on that game. By the time you're hearing this, the beta is over. But don't sleep on that game. That game is so fun. Very cool. It's like a 5-on-5. It's a PvP VE game. There's different game modes, but in the beta, there's only the one game mode. And it's a lot of fun. You're racing to complete objectives against the other team. And it's kind of like Overwatch with dinosaurs a little bit. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way if that turns you off. Just try it, is what I would say. Because I'm not an Overwatch guy, but that's just the format of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is what that reminded me of. But we had a blast. I played it with a bunch of the guys from GamingNexus.com, and we really enjoyed it. I'm playing a couple of other secret games that I can't talk about just yet, but they are coming imminently, I would say. So I'll be able to talk about those next week and what they are. But yeah, so pretty busy time for me right now, reviewing games, trying to still play games that I want to play on my own, etc. And we're just about to this year, we're just getting crushed with the games. I tweeted earlier just how there are so many cool games and there's so many more cool looking games on the way. It's just overwhelming. So I need a time machine. But anyway, that's it for me. And I'll get out of here now. If you guys enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to get a new episode delivered every Monday on your podcast service. Also, if you can leave us a rating or review, hearts, stars, thumbs up, comments, all that good stuff, all very helpful. We would also love it if you would share us with a friend or a loved one who you think might enjoy getting the week's PlayStation news in less than 90 minutes every week. Please share the love with them. And of course, don't forget to find us on social media and chat PlayStation with us. Again, on Twitter, we go by @TheDualSensePod. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and you can check out our blog if you choose to as well. It's thedualsensepodcast.wordpress.com. So please find us and chat with us. We'd love to hear from you. We'll get out of here. I'll get out of here now. I'm programmed to say we, but Travis MIA this week. So I'll get out of here. You guys take care. Have a great week, and thank you for listening once again. Bye-bye.